Good day, chaps. So today's video is going to cover a little known but interesting development during the war years. It's the Traclat, or Tracked Light Artillery Tractor, a vehicle based around a very successful German half-track, but one that, like so much, would ultimately vanish. The requirement for a half-track, or in this case a three-quarter tracked artillery tractor, began in February 1943. When the Director of Mechanization was instructed by the Assistant Chief of Imperial General Staff to develop prototypes for a three-quarter tracked artillery vehicle suitable for towing the 25-pounder, 17-pounder and the Bofors 40mm guns, as well as 4.5 and 5-inch howitzers and the 3.7-inch heavy anti-aircraft piece. The current wheeled vehicle artillery tractors in the 60 to 90 horsepower range were inadequate for this role, and the War Office had been impressed with the reports and performance of German vehicles, especially half-tracks, in this area. Now, it might surprise folks that the UK has a long history of developing half-track type vehicles, who, along with the French, were early pioneers in this field, and produced a vast array of them, from the sensible to something taken straight from the Adams family. Nevertheless, the UK in the interwar period had a large number of half-tracks and concepts on the go, as well as the Dragons, which were also used as full-tracked artillery vehicles towing heavy guns, and both also served a myriad of other roles, from radio carriers to ambulances. Yet, by the time the Second World War came about, almost all of these had been abandoned or forgotten, with only a few light carriers and 4x4 vehicles being used. While a similar story could be argued for other vehicles, such as self-propelled guns and APCs, truly the period leading up to the start of the war could be described as the period of great neglect. Fast forward back to 1943, and the General Staff specifications for a new tractor were prepared by the Director of Royal Artillery and passed to the Director of Mechanization in March 1943. Several captured German half-tracks were therefore ordered to be shipped back to the UK and were delivered to the Wheeled Vehicle Experimental Establishment, or WEVE, for assessment, and given to various automotive firms, along with numerous documents and reports detailing known deficiencies and other information on the German designs gleaned by the War Office. Following this, two firms began to compete to develop the required machines. The first was Vauxhall Bedfords, and the second was AEC. The former went ahead and wanted to base their machine on a rebuilt German vehicle, the SD KFZ-6, while the AEC model was built around a remodeled 4x4 Matador truck. On this latter one, the track section of the AEC design was based on a rear axle and consisted of 4 road wheels and a rear drive sprocket, a front idler with a single return roller. The rest of the vehicle was still very much an archaic wooden flat-nosed box design, which during testing turned out to be a failure, and was quickly dismissed as being too slow, lacking both tractive power and poor steering, as well as unsuitable weight distribution, and that one was cancelled in October 1943. The first Vauxhall models were made in November 43, with a full-scale mock-up ready in February 1944, which was inspected by the Deputy Chief of the Imperial General Staff and the Director of Royal Artillery in March, along with the Director of the Royal Armoured Corps, or DRAC. This new vehicle was simply known as the BT at this point, meaning Bedford Tractor, and at some point received the name Traclat, meaning the Tracked Light Artillery Tractor. The front wheels were from the standard Bedford Army truck and were undriven, with much of the body panels also taken from the truck as well. For the engine, the Army had not specified a new design for the vehicle. Hence, the engineering team simply took a pair of standard 3.5 litre, 72 horsepower 6-cylinder Bedford truck engines, already in use, and put them together, with separate cooling radiators on the sides to each produce a combined 7 litre, 136 horsepower unit, capable of propelling up to 30 miles an hour. Drive to the tracks were delivered by a common drive shaft going into a coupling gearbox, and steering was automatic turning, both the wheel and adjusting the drive of the track at the same time. This was unlike the German vehicle, where the front wheels took all of the strain of the steering until they reached full lock, after which time the tracks were used to brake and assist. The first vehicle was ready for testing in September 1944 at Luton, and by January 45, 4 were on operation, with 3 at Luton and 1 at the Wheeled Vehicle Establishment, and later a further 2 for a total of 6 working prototypes were ready. By the 1st of April 1946, the war was over, but testing was complete. In total, they'd run some 26,000 miles between them, and barring a few hiccups were found to be satisfactory. The only common problems, with the exception of the BT6 which had some construct defects, were track pads coming loose, and although later rectified, this was marked down as part of the driver's daily inspection routine to be done. These pads had a half-life of around 2,500 miles, roughly half of that of the German models. Problems were also noted in the winch drive, which had been known to be faulty and often caused damage to the vehicle with any load over 4 tons, and had to be handled very carefully to avoid damage to the machine or the operators. The final large test was done between 3 vehicles in 1946 at the FVDD. This was a comparison trial to essentially see what was the best vehicle, and was done between the 6th prototype, Traclat, a Crusader gun tractor, and an Electo self-propelled gun. All 3 vehicles ran between 1,500 and 2,000 miles on both road and cross-country, as well as hill tests and slopes, each towing 25-pounder gun limbers. The end results were that neither of the vehicles had any major advantage over the others, with Electo probably being marginally the worst, albeit that any advantage in one system was offset by deficiencies at the same time. On the weight front, the Electo came in first place at 11 tons, followed by Traclat at 12 tons, and Crusader in third at 21 tons. But on a power-to-weight ratio, Crusader won, followed by Electo, and Traclat in third place. Cross-country trials, Crusader again top place, with an average speed of 13.8 miles an hour, followed in second by Traclat at 12.6 miles an hour, and finally Electo at 11.8 miles an hour. Yet on the roads it was reversed again, with Electo in first place at 29 miles an hour, Crusader at 28, and Traclat at just 27 miles an hour. Yet to reach its top speed, Crusader was able to do this in 20 seconds, Electo in 24, and finally Traclat came puffing in at 37.5 seconds. Also offset by fuel consumption, with Traclat and Electo both being better for the road, and overall Traclat having an average fuel use of 2.8 miles per gallon, 2.2 for Electo, and just 1 mile per gallon for the Crusader. On terrain tests, both the Traclat and Electo were superior on road surfaces, or hard terrain, for manoeuvrability, while the opposite was true in muddy terrain, with Crusader showing the other 2 up, and both were superior to Electo in deep mud, as she had no track spuds fitted. On going up and down slopes, the Crusader was unable to take its gun down a 30-degree slope, while the Traclat's engine was starved of oil going up the same 30-degree slope. And on camouflage tests, initially Traclat came out worse, being nearly 9 foot tall, but by removing the canvas cover, they came in second place, and neither could beat Electo's diminutive size. These tests went on into very fine details such as driver comfort, which Traclat won, rainproofing, ease of reverse, and so on. Of those made, 4 of the Traclats, numbers 1, 2, 4 and 5, went to the British Army on the Rhine for further testing and vanished. BT number 3 was last seen at Farnborough, and BT number 6 was last seen at Chertsey. Today, no Traclats remain or are known of. It's possible, but extremely unlikely, one ended up in a barn or in some mad German's basement. But otherwise they're presumed to have been scrapped or sold off. One photo does circulate around online with a number plate and what appears to be scrub on the back, so whether it was sold off to a farmer, I don't know. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this little one. She's a rare little beastie and I wish there had been a survivor for the collections. But if you did like this, feel free to give it a sub and until next time, toodle pip.